running against John Hoeven, and he wants to be on the Republican slot on the ticket in the fall to be North Dakota's next United States Senator. That's Rick Becker, state representative now out of Bismarck. Representative Becker, good to have you back on News and Views.
Hey, Joel, thanks for having me on. Well, I'm wondering what kind of trouble you're going to get me in today.
You're starting to make a lot of noise nationally. You know, we had a philosophical conversation last time. You have always been for less government. Anywhere you can have less government, you've been pretty consistent about that. I asked you about federal crop insurance, and you made a statement, and it's getting used against you quite a bit. I've seen that play out on social media. Are you sorry that you made that statement, or what is your position when it comes to federal crop insurance?
Well, so and thanks, Joel. You helped me learn about something I didn't know a whole lot about, because I can tell you I had lots and lots of farmers call me when they not actually concerned about what was said on the radio program, but what was alleged by John Hoeven afterward. So my position is it's a federal program that has a lot of inefficiency, fraud, and abuse. And that's consistent with just about every federal program out there. So what I had said on our initial interview was it should go to the states or even preferably the private market. It turns out I learned that's actually the same position as the North Dakota Farm Bureau. And what I had to clarify, because John said, well, Becker wants to get rid of all crop insurance and he doesn't like farmers. Effectively, that's what he's saying. Kind of like if I want to have border security, I'm a racist, that type of thing. So, but what I found is that there is actually a lot of room for improvement, reforms that can be made that helps the farmer with flexibility, independence, better farming practices, because there's a lot of what they call perverse incentives in there. So it is a program that needs to be reformed, and I think it should be moved from the federal government to the states or the private market. Pretty straightforward.
Can they make it work actuarially? I mean, is there going to be enough money there to handle it if you took it out of the federal government's hands? So that's the big question.
Well, yes, but here's the interesting thing, Joel, is that what the federal government does is it constructs a program that tends to be so heavily subsidized that we can't work without the subsidies. Well, that's because we're saying is we have to have the exact same program. I mean, look at hail insurance. Hail insurance is private, and also you look at farmers that don't farm the crops that are specifically in the federal crop insurance program or not in as much. They're doing just fine. So, like I said on our initial interview, this would be something that should be undone systematically over the course of a few years. So it absolutely can be done.
So let's get off crop insurance for a little bit, because here's one of the things that I want to ask you about. And I think this matters a lot. With everything that's playing out in Ukraine, you're not going to be, if you win this race, a state representative anymore, talking about state budgets and what we just got done talking about, which is roads, bridges, those type of things. You're going to be working on a national scale. You're going to be one of 100 people that sets policy in regards to how much money would go to Ukraine, would go towards these type of efforts. You're going to have a voice in regards to should America have troops on the ground and police the no-fly zone if there is one and join in. So I have to ask you this. Where are we at in your mind when it comes to Ukraine? Should we have ourselves dealt a bigger hand, or are we doing what we can do?
Well, I think, first off, I'm going to say when it comes to these things, politicians tend to spout off a lot without really knowing all the facts. So everything we talk about, it has to be understood that, my information is coming from the news, which, as you know, I probably, I don't trust all that much after a whole last 2 years of COVID. But given that, generally speaking, what we need to do is deal with this by way of sanctions. I mean, it's crazy that we got ourselves in the situation we did by taking off the Nord Stream pipeline to sanctions, by losing our energy independence in America because of no longer leasing the federal lands, that sort of thing. So I think we kind of did some of this to ourselves. But if we step away even from that, what we have is a country that is maybe more friendly to the West, being aggressed upon by Russia, a nation very clearly hostile to our own. And I believe the best way to deal with it is with sanctions. A lot of what we're doing now, I believe we must not send troops. I think it's even ill-advised to enforce a no-fly zone. It's virtually impossible to enforce it without actually becoming entangled in a war.
You're right.
I'm hugely in favor of bringing our troops.
On that, you're right. Yeah, I mean, if we get into the no-fly zone, we're in war. I mean, I will. Yep. I could not agree with you more. As far as you say to the news, and the one thing, Rick, in our hard debates that we've had through the years is, a lot of what you've brought to the table has been based on the readings, the listenings, the homework you've done. But I have to tell you that there's no less, other than future on public lands, development of oil than what happened before. There's more oil being pumped now than there was last year. And so to put this war at the feet of an energy policy here in the U.S. is nothing but a bunch of BS. And it aids in our enemy. I mean, it does. This is about Vladimir Putin attacking Ukraine. This isn't about energy policy in the United States of America. People sit there and they talk about the Keystone XL pipeline. That was never designed to deliver oil here. It was designed to let us be the highway so they could deliver this dirty oil, and our North Dakota oil producers didn't want it. So let me ask you this, because this is where it falls back to you as a legislator. When the COVID money came in, Doug Burgum chose to give millions of dollars of grants to oil companies in North Dakota that aren't based here. They just work out of here. So they got millions of those dollars, and they didn't even put those to work in development because they said the price per barrel of oil was too low. So when we look in the mirror, when Doug Burgum looks in the mirror and shaves, when you do as a legislator, because you oversaw those monies, aren't you responsible at some level?
Well, okay, so let's go back just a little bit. So I want to say that the whole oil thing and the pumping of oil does play a role, because if we don't maximize our oil production, then we'd lose leverage with other countries like Iran and like Russia. And yes, what we're actually pumping now is similar to what we were pumping before, but we've lost the ability, for instance, closing down ANWR. So we're losing our ability by not renewing federal leases and so forth. And so we're moving very clearly in a direction to pumping less, or at least not increasing the capabilities that we have. And so it plays a role because we lose leverage. We aren't able to help other countries by way of helping provide oil or fossil fuels to them. Now, going to your most recent question, I think that I don't like to see money going to oil companies. I don't like seeing the taxpayer dollars to go to any of these companies. And the idea that we're going to give them the money, but then they don't use it because it doesn't work out, that doesn't sit well with me. Just like giving money to orphaned wells. Well, any company that is causing some type of situation when they're closing shop, they need to take care of that situation. I mean, that's basic. But I'm going to take it just a step further. I'm going to bring it back to the Senate race. There's a huge difference between John Hoeven and myself. John, if he has anything as a legacy as governor and senator, it is the idea that it is appropriate for government to subsidize, to give corporate welfare out like candy, that's the government's role. And what John was doing was subsidizing ethanol to a huge degree. That was his primary position. And wind energy subsidies, huge, to the point that it gave such an uneven playing field that coal started really suffering. And now he's decided, hey, the best way to fix these suffering fossil fuel energy companies is by now giving them taxpayer money in the form of corporate welfare and subsidies. So as we see so often, government is actually the source of a problem, and then the people say, well, the best way to fix it is to add more government and do the exact same thing, but from a different direction.
Have you communicated with John Hoeven since you've entered this race?
When we've gone to district conventions, we've shared little niceties, but that's it.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking you this is because with everything playing out in Ukraine, there's a real history here in the United States, and it's been on your side of the aisle, Rick, of this. I love Vladimir Putin. I love his style. What a guy. We need more leaders like him. And it's all kind of coming to light now, just exactly what kind of man he is. The reason I'm asking this is because on the 4th of July, John Hoeven, a couple of years back, was in Russia. And I don't think we still know to this day what he was doing in Russia. And I'm wondering if you are ever going to make that a question in your campaign, because this is billions upon billions of dollars. This is people's lives. This is people's homes. This is generational, what's happening to these people in Ukraine. Why was John Hoeven in Russia? Are you going to ask him that question?
Well, I think it's a great question to ask, but it's kind of funny, Joel. I touched on that. We recorded a little show that's gonna air Sunday night, where it wasn't focused primarily on his Russia trip, but it involved that trip and then his involvement with China to a significant degree, because he has a history. He has a history of two things. One is giving subsidies and corporate welfare to companies that are involved with these foreign entanglements, and then just having a pattern of failures when it comes to these foreign endeavors. And one of them is this whole idea, this whole trip he took over July 4th in Moscow, which the optics of that are, pretty not very good. But more than that, he and 7 other Republicans went over with a lot of bluster about how they're going to put the Russians in their place. And they left not having accomplished anything, and in fact being ridiculed in the Russian press as being lapdogs. So I don't know what the real purpose. I assume there was a real purpose.
I'm trying to find out what that purpose was. I want to know I want to know what he went over there to do. And I know that there's a lot of talk about business interests. There's a lot of talk about all of that. But the truth of the matter is, these foreign ponder this, Rick, on the break. Okay, there's a corn crushing plant going to be going in on the edge of Grand Forks. People are mad about it. It involves the Chinese. Okay, Kevin Kramer's come out pretty strong about it. Said some strong word. Haven't heard from John Hoeven. China is going to own this facility in North Dakota. How do you sit with that in terms of how all of this new kind of ag processing is looking at? And I know I'm a co-op guy. I'm a member-owned guy. So I'm curious what your take on it is.
Well, I'm opposed to it on several fronts. And I know that John Hoeven has come out in favor of it, at least earlier in November timeframe. He was definitely in favor of the Fufang, that the Chinese-owned corn milling plant in Grand Forks. One front that I'm completely opposed to it on is the subsidies. Again, I keep saying the same thing, but actually, I think that's something where, at least what I saw in the legislature, the Democrats and the true conservatives agreed on is that we're no fans of corporate welfare. But what you've got is corporate welfare for that particular business from the state level and from the local level. You're looking at $96 million in building up infrastructure for them that the people of Grand Forks City and Grand Forks County are going to pay for. You've got the state legislature building that pipeline to the tune of $50 million with a $10 million spoke specifically for the business, and then they're going to have to pay more in the 2023 legislature. So anyway, we've got this corporate welfare going out, and so that shouldn't be. The second thing is, I don't like the idea of a specifically a company from China coming in, because China, being a communist nation, has specific ties. If it's not technically ownership, it's like ownership. They're able to control. And the director of this particular plant, Fufang, had very strong ties with the Communist Party in China.
Rick,
so that's ill-advised.
I'm running out of time here. If people want to see your campaign, where do they go? What's the website?
It's rickbecker2022.com, rickbecker2022.com. Huge differences between me and John Hoeven.
All right. We'll visit again soon, okay? Thank you, Representative
All right.
Becker.
Sounds great. Thanks, Joel.